For each, he will create clocks that show his time. Clocks were originally intended to show the time above, but in this world, there are clocks that, by fate or the intention of evil fate, are destined not to show the passage of time of the day, but the will of higher intellect. The heavens, born at the same time as the earth, were never in harmony with them. The pendulum, swinging from side to side, signaled, with its movements, perhaps the will of fate itself. The moist clods of earth, oppressed by the tightness of the tree's flesh, increasingly drew curious souls into the darkening unknown abyss. Such unusual clocks, of course, could not lie on the shelves of ordinary stores, could not be sold by random hands to random buyers. Therefore, in our world, full of riddles and mysteries, so understandable and simple at first glance, at the crossroads, there are shops that only the chosen can find the way to, and those to whom fate has shown the hidden path come to the door of the strange clock shop. Within its walls dwells only one master clockmaker, who has laid his immortal soul on the line for the sake of art. Months, years, and sometimes centuries pass before a single, unique specimen is brought to light. Even if the master wished, he could not make exactly the same clock a second time. There are plenty of stories associated with the strange clock shop. They are passed down from mouth to mouth, long since embellished with additions made by each new storyteller, becoming another urban legend, the authenticity of which no one will ever be able to prove. Today, however, the path, flowing like a river from tired travelers' feet, led a young woman named Erica Miller to the strange clock shop. Today wasn't going well for Erica. From the early morning, her alarm clock, set as usual for exactly 5:00, stubbornly remained silent, and the woman overslept for work. Rushing to get ready, she spilled coffee on her favorite suit. Then came the lateness for the bus, which left a minute before the breathless Erica appeared at the stop, forcing her to hail a taxi. Every penny counted for a regular employee of one of the millions of offices in New York City, especially since Erica also had a sick mother to take care of, and there was no one else to do it, and now she had to spend money on a taxi. Even at the office, a surprise inspection unexpectedly occurred today, and in the general failure, of course, Erica was accused of poorly compiling the report on her month's work. Carrying a whole box of documents with her, angry and tired, Erica left the office late in the evening. She wanted to walk home, but then the inconvenient, cold, nasty rain started. Placing the box on a bench, she looked at her watch and decided to wait at the stop for another bus. Moreover, rummaging through her pockets, she found only $2.50. This would barely be enough for a bus ticket, let alone a taxi. After standing at the stop for a full 2 hours, Erica shivered to the bone and, covering the documents with her jacket, decided to walk home when a bus pulled up to the stop. She could hardly believe her luck. The bus doors opened, blowing her with hot steam, and she stepped inside the cabin, forgetting even to check which route this bus was taking. Taking a seat in one of the many available seats, Erica looked around. Besides her, there were 4 other people in the cabin: an 8-year-old boy, dressed in a warm, out-of-season coat. He was all huddled up as if from the cold, and looked like a frightened animal, staring towards the driver. Erica was surprised why such a small boy was traveling alone at such a late hour. In front of her sat a light-haired woman, dressed in a thin cotton dress. Opposite the woman sat a young man in a brown leather jacket, smiling broadly, without fatigue, his mouth stretched to its fullest. Near the doors stood a stooped, ancient old woman, leaning on her cane. Erica felt uncomfortable with her fellow passengers and, throwing her jacket over her shoulders, stared out the window. The doors closed, hissing, and the bus slowly rolled along the road. Periodically, the bus stopped, but no one boarded or exited the cabin. Lanterns and unfamiliar streets flew by. Erica peered out the window, trying to understand where she was. But the windows, annoyingly, fogged up, and she couldn't see anything. Finally, Erica had enough, and standing up, she headed towards the driver. "Excuse me, sir," she addressed, trying to make out the driver's figure in the semi-darkness of the driver's cabin. "Where are we now? "You haven't arrived yet," came the answer, and the woman, not understanding how, found herself back in her seat while the driver increased the speed. Deciding to try her luck, Erica turned to the smiling guy. "Is this bus going to Wall Street?" she asked as friendly as possible. But the guy didn't answer, continuing to smile even wider, looking straight into her eyes, and Erica felt uncomfortable under his gaze. "This bus only goes to the strange clock shop," croaked the old woman, staring ahead again with an absent gaze, studying the dark surroundings. "But I don't need to go there," she panicked. "Driver, stop the bus. I want to get off." But the driver didn't stop the bus. Instead, a message appeared on the screen: "Do not distract the driver while driving." Then the woman tried to stand up, but even that she couldn't manage. Her body suddenly refused to obey her, and the leather straps, digging into her chest, pressed the frightened woman into the bus's hard seat. And the driver continued to accelerate, as if none of the passengers noticed the oddities of the journey. Each of them, maintaining silence, looked at something interesting visible only to them, paying no attention to Erica's screaming. When her cries annoyed the driver, he simply raised the window. The next stop occurred only after 2 hours. The doors opened, and the straps slipped off her shoulders. Overjoyed, Erica, forgetting about the documents, slipped out of the cabin. As the strange bus departed, the woman looked around, trying to figure out at least roughly where she was. She stood in an empty lot, in the center of an intersection, and besides a small one-story building, there were no other structures visible for miles, not a single sign of human activity. The rain, starting again, prompted her to decide to visit her little home, and Erica rushed towards it. Stopping halfway, the woman sighed disappointedly. The windows of the time-worn house were black with darkness, and judging by the faded signs, the little shop that the house turned out to be hadn't been operational for many years. Footsteps sounded behind her, and Erica was overtaken by a fellow traveler in a cotton dress. She was heading straight for the abandoned shop. The woman's surprise knew no bounds when the stranger reached the building. The lights came on in its windows, there was a click, and a sign appeared above the door. "Welcome to the strange clock shop." Hoping that there was a telephone in this shop, Erica walked towards the door, while her fellow traveler had already disappeared behind it. Opening the door, the woman entered inside. Before her lay a small room filled with all sorts of clocks. Behind the counter sat an elderly man in glasses with thick lenses. In his hands he held a clock and was winding the mechanism with a small screwdriver. The shop smelled of oil and wax. There was no electricity here either. The room was illuminated by wax candles, of which there were many dozens. Involuntarily, Erica admired the clocks. She had never seen anything like them before. Floor, wall, hand, pocket, alarm clocks, they were all here. And they were all different. There were no two alike. Most of the glass was covered with a thick layer of cobwebs and dust. Only 6 specimens were in working condition. The first ones were floor clocks. Their skin was cast in gold. They were shaped like trees with ruby apples. The numerals on the dial were Roman and made of shimmering precious stones. The hands, rotating backwards, were cast in platinum. Erica couldn't even imagine how much such clocks would cost, so she moved on to the second specimen. These clocks hung on the wall and in shape resembled an owl with huge green glowing eyes. There were no hands or numerals. The dial was small and gray, showing nothing, only the pendulum tail swinging with increasing speed. Listening carefully, Erica thought she heard the owl opening its beak, whispering, half an hour, and your daughter will die. 2 hours, and Jean will leave you." Shaking her head, the woman thought she was getting too worked up, and she no longer heard anything except the ticking, and the pendulum stopped. Breathing a sigh of relief, Erica, standing next to the showcase, turned her attention to the third clock. They were wristwatches. The black strap was made of leather. The dial was surrounded by a scattering of small diamonds, and on it, the moon changed with a small interval after the sun. Then the rain started, and the moon came out again. These clocks were strange somehow. Like the three previous ones, they didn't appeal to Erica, and she cast her gaze on the only electronic clocks in this wonderful little shop. Regular steel clocks, except that the digits, flashing, showed the same time, constantly 17:06. Next to them hung wooden clocks with a cuckoo. This cuckoo peeked out of its hiding place every 3 minutes, and instead of the usual cuckoo, with a creaky voice, it said, "Time to kill, time to kill." Miss Miller, hearing her name, Erica jumped in place, slowly turning to the voice, feeling the hairs on her body stand on end. "Your clocks are ready, come and get them." "I'm here for the first time." Shivers ran down the woman's spine, and she quickly walked over to the watchmaker, who was holding an alarm clock in his hands. "It's just been one of those days. I was late at work, got on the wrong bus, and ended up in this shop. I need a phone, and if..." Miss Miller, cutting off her emotional story. The watchmaker smiled. "A random person cannot find their way to this shop, just as one cannot ride in the rusty old car of fate. Here, take your clocks and go home. Your fate is already waiting for you." Mechanically reaching out her hand, she took the clocks. A cold, gray, metallic case, a yellow dial with ordinary black digits on it, and the hands were moving forward, showing the correct time. But there was one but the minute hand spread out at the bottom of the dial as if digging a grave. It sent shivers down Erica's spine, and she barely restrained herself from throwing the clocks back at the master who made them. "I have nothing to pay for them." Smiling as friendly as possible, the woman handed them back to the watchmaker, but he just waved his hand, smiling. "Look in the right pocket of your jacket," the master said. Swallowing hard, Erica put her hand in her pocket and, pale-faced, pulled out a blue bill, which she had never seen before in her life. "Just the right amount," the watchmaker smiled, taking the money. "And now it's time for you to go." Already standing in the doorway, Erica suddenly turned around. "Your clocks. They're all so unusual," the woman said, her gaze sliding over the master's face with a scrutinizing look. "Some go backwards, others talk, still others don't show time at all. But mine, even though they run correctly, are digging some sort of pit. These clocks are unique, you won't find another one like them anywhere else," the watchmaker replied. "I've been making them for centuries, but I can only say that they are all intended for specific individuals. Who exactly? I only find out when the bewildered, frightened owner of the clocks appears at the threshold of my shop. Some show joyful news, the birth of a child or a promotion at work. Others warn of a sharp turn in the owner's fate, and still others show death. What your clocks will say, I don't know. Thank you." Barely squeezing out one single word and pushing the door, she flew out of the shop like a bullet. Her surprise was indescribable when, instead of the vacant lot, Erica saw the corridor of her apartment in front of her. Dropping her bag, the woman collapsed on the bed on wobbly legs and fell asleep instantly. The clock hands, spinning rapidly, stopped at 6 in the morning, and there was a click, after which the minute hand stopped digging its grave at the bottom of the dial. The next morning, Erica overslept for work. The alarm clock, set exactly at 6, didn't ring for the first time today. Hurrying to get ready, the woman suddenly felt as if she had already experienced all these events. Taking a glass of coffee, she spilled it on herself, just reinforcing her suspicions. Stopping to look at the clocks, Erica pondered. All this somehow had to do with the alarm clock, but where she got them and what happened yesterday, Erica couldn't remember. Her head was pounding, as if after a noisy party, her mouth was dry. Grabbing her bag, the woman ran out of the house, catching a taxi on the fly. The alarm clock hands jumped to 15 minutes past 7, and the metal, melting, slid down the table. Erica had already opened the taxi door when a black BMW came speeding around the corner. The digital clock hanging over the cafe showed exactly 15 minutes past 7 when the BMW crashed into the taxi at high speed. 2 victims died on the spot. Looking into the camera lens, the young reporter recounted the latest events. The drunk driver, whose name remains unknown, was detained by the police at the scene. We now know the name of only one victim. Erica Miller died immediately after the accident from severe, life-incompatible injuries. So, I was right. The clocks predicted her death, wiping the dial of the pocket watch with a soft cloth. The watchmaker said, "I wonder who will visit my shop today?" In our urbanized world, there is almost no place left for miracles, but that doesn't mean they no longer exist. We just refuse to see them and believe in them. And maybe at this very moment, the old watchmaker is making strange clocks just for us. But fortunately, we cannot know this.